Good afternoon, gentlemen. Good morning, gentlemen. Hope everything is well.
Good afternoon.
As you work towards completing your papers and prepare for the pop quiz that could come up any day now, make sure again that you see how these concepts are tying together. Is again a lot of the information that you need to present there is pretty straightforward, and it's going to be presented in lecture. So one of the things we talked about is mechanical and organic solidarity, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a moment. But one of the some concepts that are really important in understanding this, and of course, a large part of your paper has to speak to the urban and rural divide. A large part of this is the concepts of Diamond Shelf and Gesellschaft. So again, Diamond Shelf, these are both like typologies of communities. So a Gemeinschaft, and it's really easy to mix these up. So please look at them closely. But the main thing you want to know is like, the criteria. So when I ask you to explain Gemeinschaft, it'll be to like go into this kind of detail. If I ask you to, like, so when you got to explain the industrial, urban, and agricultural revolutions, that means that you need to be explaining in great detail, excuse me, how society changed after those revolutions. Here you want to describe in intricate detail how these communities are structured. So it's more intimate. So intimate means more close up and personal, like that you know the person you know the individual personally. Again, like there are many in small communities where you'll know all your neighbors' name, you'll know who lived in the house up the street, you'll know like their work patterns. So if you see this, like, something strange is going on at the house up the street, it may stand out because, you actually know these people. This is different from a Gesellschaft community where you may not know your next door neighbor if living there for 15, 20 years. So these are more intimate. It's based on more tradition. So again, this is a small town environment. And it's based on who the individual is. We talked about again in principles of sociology, if you had that with me, the difference between descriptive and achieved statuses. Descriptive, again, are statuses that you're born with. So your family name is really important, Stephen, in the Gemeinschaft community. And again, make sure you're listening up. A great challenge and frustration at times is I'm taking, I'm going through this, explaining, and then look, and if there's anything you need me to go back over or anything that's not clear, stop me and, have me go through it again. But it is an expectation of mine, and I think a pretty reasonable expectation for adults, because you're going to have similar type of expectations throughout your professional life, that if I'm presenting this information to you, I expect you to be able to explain to me these concepts when we return to them later. Do you all think that that's a fair bargain?
Yes, sir.
If anything, again, it's not clear, I got y'all, but if we're not really learning this stuff, then that's a problem. But I can't help, make you learn it. I need your help with that. So I really need you to be attentive and absorbing this stuff, not just blindly writing things down while you're thinking and distracted by other things. So descriptive statuses, again, are statuses that you're born with. The preacher's son, the Johnson family, that owns this property, that owns the fruit stand. This is different from achieved statuses, which again are statuses that you earn. You become an architect, you become a lawyer, you become a social worker. You weren't born that. So in that way, even if you come from a quote unquote bad family name, you can overcome that and outside of a Gemeinschaft community. But in a Gemeinschaft community, yes, who you are and who your kin folks is very important. These communities are more homogenous. Again, when you hear the prefix homo, it means same. So what this speaks to is that most of the people that live in these communities are very similar. Similar religious values, similar races, similar income levels, similar education levels. And in these communities, again, these are smaller towns. The family and the church are the moral guides in terms of informing the value system. So again, look this over closely, make sure that you understand it. We're going to come back to this. And again, you have to speak to these divides in your paper. So it's really important that you understand them. And I don't want y'all just to be writing this stuff down. It is important that you really understand it. As we'll talk about it, and you definitely want to speak to your papers. There are many political ramifications for these divides that are really important. So Jezreel Shaft only makes full sense in the presence of Jimmy Diamond Shaft. Look at these several times. Again, give yourself, after class today, look at these notes about 5 or 10 minutes. If your notes are only including what you see on the PowerPoint, you're not taking good notes. If your notes only include what's on the PowerPoint, you're not taking good notes. The important things that are really being said
are... Muhammad, how you pronounce that word?
Jezreel Shaft.
So is this like a more business relationship?
Say it again? Absolutely, yes. Definitely more business. That people relate to each other pretty much. When we talk about rational, the rationality is, how does this help me make some money? And again, it's overstated, but it's like, where a small thing where, again, in a small town, you may have a conversation, like, again, with your store clerk, hey, how you doing? How's your family? In a Jezreel Shaft environment, I am here to make a business transaction. Once that transaction is over, the conversation needs to end.
So this ties into the class when you start talking about like the urban revolution, because from the YouTube video that you posted from class the other day, I could tell that we're starting to get into a little bit more stuff of with the urban revolution is more technology, city light, moving up north and stuff like that. So with this one like tied to the urban revolution?
Not like so the urban revolution is when rural areas change into more urban areas. So again, we talk about revolution. Now those things you talked about, a characteristic of it, and Jezreel Shaft is absolutely more in line with urban societies. And it's a lot of terms to mix up. Again, we're going to hear about urban revolution, urbanism, urbanization. So it's really easy to mix up these terms. So it's really important that you study them closely. And most of this has to be done, again, outside of class. How are we coming along with getting access to the book? Have we had any progress on that front in terms of getting on that flash drive?
I was going to meet with Charles today to get copies of the pages done.
Yeah, because we've been scanning them, but because they're real finicky about us, because what I wanted to do,
Miss Clark was it yes or no, was Miss Clark able to put the book on the flash drive?
No sir. She was having us do it. Yes sir.
Okay, for sure. Okay. All right, so this city environment, so in the meantime, as was laid out in the beginning of the semester, you're probably going to have to either head to the library or take pictures of it. Yeah, because I didn't think that they would let you copy and scan like that much, but if she said that, then I thought it would happen, and she would be the one taking part in it and everything. But yeah, there could be no excuses for not getting access to the material. So don't count on anybody in the library, doing anything beyond an extra. You're going to need to make your way to the library sometimes. You might need to take pictures with your phone or something, as you had suggested before. Yes. But not reading and not going over there and getting access to material is going to be problematic. If you don't think you can do that, you probably should consider dropping. Jezreel Shaft again refers to large-scale associations It's more business than personal relationships. So in this way, you know, again, you may at a store in a small town or environment, if somebody doesn't have money to, like, you know, pay the full bill on their groceries or something, you might, like, you know, give them a hookup because, again, you know them, you know, you've had this relationship with them for years, you know their families. So like, okay, look, just, you know, pay me, yeah, go ahead, you know, take this bread and milk, pay me, you know, when you get paid next week. In a large scale association where there are so many people, and most of these people you don't know personally, those type of things are going to be more difficult to sustain. And as opposed to family and church, and again, this is like, you know, some of these divides are overstated because it's not like, you know, the family and church don't take priority. They just aren't the main guides in these type of environments. It's mainly going to be, again, work relationships, and then bureaucracies, the rules and laws that inform these environments. So we talked again about mechanical and organic solidarity. This is an important component of your paper. I'm going to leave this up for a moment and then I'll dig into it in more detail. In the first human societies, there were two jobs. Does anybody recall what those jobs were?
Hunter and gatherer.
Excellent. So, Stephen, we talk about division of labor. You know, we're just talking about how do we divide the labor that needs to be done for a society? And basically, like, who does which jobs, and how many jobs are available? These are the things when I say, like, you know, if you're only taking notes on what's here, the thing I just said are some of the things you need to be writing down. I'll say it again. What you want to be focusing on here is how many jobs are available? How many jobs do we need to be available?
Back during that time, it was just two, and wouldn't the men
I'm sorry, I wasn't asking y'all yet. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry.
Oh, I apologize.
No, you good. But what this slide is speaking to, when you're thinking about mechanical and organic solidarity, and in general, when you're thinking about the division of labor, what I want you all to be thinking about in this regard is, you know, how many jobs do we have and how many different types of jobs do we need? So in the hunter and gatherer society, the society was structured, Charles, where you only needed two types of jobs for the society to keep, for that society to keep thriving. How many people on average would be in the society? Do y'all recall?
10,000.
Nope.
Wouldn't it be like a real small number, like maybe like 10 or less? Because you had depending on how many miles you had, yeah. Because if you had too much people, you know, they would starve to death, so they had to keep the number small.
Excellent, Charles. Excellent. They might branch out to maybe 20 or 30, but certainly no more than that. And yeah, definitely not 10,000 in the hunter and gathering society. So the hunter and gatherer society, they only had like 30 people. So because their population was small and their resources were few, they only needed two jobs. This describes, you know, this is in line with the mechanical solidarity division of labor. When there's a small division of labor, you don't have as much variety of jobs. And let me be clear, listen up. When we're talking about mechanical solidarity, we're not only talking about hunting and gathering. We're not only talking about hunting and gathering societies. This would also, like, you know, so Stephen, once we get into some of those agricultural-based societies, that would fall in line with there too. But in a town like that, you might have it where everybody is a sugar farmer, everybody is a wheat farmer, everybody is a corn farmer. But when you get into our societies that are defined by organic solidarity, and listen to the words themselves, solidarity, solidarity. When you hear that word, what does it mean to you? When you hear that word solidarity, what does it mean to you?
By yourself or singled out?
No.
Unity.
Absolutely, right, good. So as opposed to individual isolation, it's actually more of coming together. So unified. So through this, like, you know, they have to come together. The society has to come together. You got all these different people, all these different interests, and y'all got to listen up. Kudos, Charles. Again, you know, you working with me. Rest of y'all got to step up your game a little bit, man, in terms of like y'all yelling stuff out that just sounds right, as opposed to taking the time to really understand these processes. And again, as I said before, we are doing a walk through history here. We had a few people because it ain't a whole bunch of food. We only got a couple of jobs because we don't need as much labor to survive in this society. As your society expands and you get more people and you got enough food to survive, now your society actually has more needs. So the bigger your society gets and the more resources your society gets, and the only way that you're, and keep in mind, Deshaun, the only way that your society gets bigger is if you got a lot of resources. So with the expansion of resources, you need more than just two types of jobs. So this is how, again, you know, we talked about before how for the first time now we got, you know, hey, who can be the military leaders? Who can be, you know, who's going to be the politicians that can make up our laws? Who's going to be our educators and make sure that the little kids are able to keep this civilization that we built up going? Who's going to be the doctors to make sure that, you know, people don't get sick? It's like, you know what, we who's going to be like, you know, we work really hard. Sometimes we like to have a good time. Who's going to be the people to entertain us? Again, there's a reason why you have stuff like Hollywood and, like, you know, the Country Music Center in Nashville and places like that, you know, and that America's the entertainment capital of the world in terms of music, movies and stuff like that. It's because it's a rich country. Things like this are a luxury. In countries where people are really poor, they ain't got time to be trying to, like, okay, I'm finna be a classic violinist. So organic solidarity, when your society expands because you got more resources, it allows more of a specialization in labor. Because anybody could be a hunter and gatherer, right? You didn't necessarily need to get trained to be a hunter and gatherer.
Right.
The type of jobs, the careers that you all are going into, you can't just learn these in like 15 minutes. It's a very painful process, and having to learn all this stuff, Charles, and take in all this information. Oh my God, it's so stressful. But this is the product of a more advanced society. Now we can train you, Charles, if you want to, right? Like, you know, like it's still like, because again, right, they're very quickly form a stratification system. So the less knowledge, you know, you ain't got to be that smart to be a hunter or gatherer, right? We can allow anybody to do that. So as the society got more advanced, there were still jobs that needed to be done. But the jobs where you got the access to the most resources and that being the most money, you needed a lot more specialization. So in hunter and gathering societies, they didn't have to worry about engineers. They didn't have to worry about training the lawyers. They didn't have to worry about training neurosurgeons. Our society does. But it also, in the process of this, Stephen, it makes it where your society becomes more impersonal. Again, in a smaller society, you might know the lady up the block. You may feel comfortable letting your little kids run outside because you know everybody over there. As your society expands, that becomes a lot more difficult. it becomes a lot more impersonal. People moving in and out. And why are they moving out? Why are people moving in and out? Jobs. People are coming to New York, coming to Philadelphia for work. If I get to meet my neighbors, cool. If not, and again, I don't want to overstate this. Like, there's no sense of community in a place like Detroit or St. Louis. There is. It just ain't the same. Like, when I would go visit my grandmother in Bessemer, Alabama, it was a very different type vibe. Like I said, everybody on that block knew each other in a way that's very different in bigger environments. So again, is highly specialized division of labor. The social positions become a lot more defined, where again, right, hunter and gatherers, even there, like which job do you think that they value more, hunter or gathering?
A hunter.
I didn't hear, I think one of y'all said something, but I didn't hear you. Yes, good, Steve. Yeah, so hunting again, you get more protein, you get more nourishment, like, eat some bison and you will, a nice little salad. No offense to you vegetarians out there. And it took more work to actually get this bison than it would, picking fruit from a tree. So the hunter's work was valued more. And as society became more advanced, again, as you got more resources, increasingly over time, there became more and more jobs that got high value and jobs that got low value. Ironically, in many cases, like I said, so many people had to stop farming after a while. The jobs where people actually got the food and the resources, those became less valuable. And the people that became experts, Charles, in how to run and organize a society, those are the positions that became more valuable. But in the process, it changed the society and the individuals within it. Simo looks again at this in great detail. When we talk about symbolic interactionism, that it's not just that, the environment changes the individual. The individuals also change the environment. So it's an interaction between individual and environment. Think of it like this, right? Butte, Montana is a city that I've never been to, but I can say confidently it's heavily populated by whites. They may have a decent Native American and Hispanic population, but overwhelmingly white. If all of a sudden the job market yielded as such and you had a whole bunch of Black people flooding up to Butte, Montana, how do you think if this came, and by maybe 2050, it became like 35, 40% Black. How do you think that may transform the city of Butte, Montana? Do you think it would change it at all? The culture, the norms, the values?
Yeah, I think it would be, because since it grows to 30 or 40% minorities, they could bring a culture from some other state or country and change their way of living.
And again, good. And Black people, again, we have our own subculture like other groups do. The same way, again, as more Cubans move to Miami, the culture of the city changed. As more Hispanic people move to Los Angeles, the culture of the city changed. So you see more like buildings and with Spanish, language and things like that they don't even make efforts to translate this for you. Like, hey, you're in Little Havana. I know to tell you, dog. So the same thing would be happening again with Black subculture as well, in terms of different restaurants, activities and stuff like that. Conversely, the Black people there, you will see Black people getting more into hunting and hiking and stuff. Because again, it's a dual relationship. The environment affects the people affect the environment. And in this, Simo says that urban life produces a unique form of consciousness, a unique way of thinking and seeing the world. He describes, again, where very quickly a distinct metropolitan personality is created, and it's caused by the conditions under which people live. There's a whole bunch of people, things are moving really, really quickly. People are really impersonal. Again, you may see your neighbor and stuff. You come from the South and you see your neighbor, everybody's waving. You come to Philadelphia, you waving to people and people is looking at you like you crazy, or we even curse you the fuck out.
Question, Dr. Muhammad. Going
Yes,
off
sir.
like what you said about like basically about the personality, do you think necessarily that that could potentially have like positive and negative side effects?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's one of the things that, you know, like we're going to describe those in more detail in a moment.
Okay.
That yes, in some ways, like, you know, it can give you like, you know, I'll say like, I mean, from my own experiences where in a place like Chicago, it's implicitly understood that like everybody, you got to be totally on your grind. Like if you're not, like you'll starve and die, like, because nobody gives a damn about your problems. So you got to go get it. But the flip side of that is that, you know, people behave very aggressively towards each other. That there's fierce competition, like, you know, in a way that, you know, sometimes can be destructive. And unfortunately, sometimes can lead to violence. This isn't just true, again, of, you know, Chicago in particular, any urban environment. Once your city gets to a certain population and it has, like, you know, again, certain things within that environment, you know, those things are always going to be true. So we talked about, you know, in our first couple of weeks, how more and more of the urban population, the urbanization is happening in Asia and Africa. So more and more of those places over time are going to look like, you know, Chicago, Detroit, and New York, for good and bad. The negative of it, again, we talked about before, Stephen, people come there for come there for resources, right? All types of opportunities, specifically job opportunities. Y'all think when everybody get up there, they find one?
No, sir.
So there's a huge homeless population in urban environments. In a small town, like, again, if somebody's sleeping on the street, like somebody may, hey, come in, Charles, you ain't got to, come on, baby, you ain't got to sleep on the street. Come on in. In a big urban center, like, again, Newark, New Jersey, like, I don't know this dude. Good luck, Charles. So again,
Dr. Muhammad.
So all types of pathologies in that regard. Yes, sir.
Me and Charles just talked about this yesterday because we was riding down the road and a homeless person walked up to my car. So I'm from Marion, South Carolina. It's small. We got the three same homeless people that everybody know. Like the three same homeless people. And you come to I come to Columbia, you see different homeless people like every hour.
Right. That's a great example. Again, and use the things that you've observed. You've lived in big cities or gone to big cities. You've traveled to rural areas, and you can see these distinctions that, again, we're talking about a lot of this in the 1800s. In a minute, we're going to move into the early 1900s. But these things hold true pretty much across time. In these urban environments, individuals act with their head, not with their heart. Like, again, like, so Jay-Z has a song, it's a remake, but, ain't no love in the heart of the city. Again, nobody gives a damn about your problems. It sounds rough, And again, like as in Chicago, like I'm very proud of that and learning that early on and having that kind of like, independence and stuff, but again, at times it can, be, dangerous and harmful. The urban dweller very quickly, Stephen, has to develop a blasé attitude. Because again, you come in contact with so many people. And one of the things they talked about earlier, like intensive stimulation, where during the course of a day, I mean, you see so many different crazy things that you couldn't even imagine. Like somebody like, purple hair, somebody wearing like, like a Viking hat and a dress, just for no, like, for no reason. Somebody on the train, like, wearing a couch. I mean, just anything. And they ain't even getting to like, the crime and all that type of stuff. People might be fucking on the back of the bus. Anything could be happening. Like, so the first, if you move to like, New York today, the first couple of weeks, you're like, oh my God. After like a year or two, it's going to be, crazy things happening. And it's going to be almost like you don't even notice it. And again, this isn't always a good thing. But you come in contact with so many crazy things throughout the day, you have to kind of put on a shield, if you will. But it does allow, like one of the benefits of, it does allow a lot more individual freedom and autonomy. You know, so if you have like, you know, if you're different or unique and you live in a small town, those differences are going to really stick out. So if you have different religious beliefs from like, you know, the town folk that you live in, if you have different sexual behaviors, if you live in a town where, you know, people are, the norms are for people not to really drink that much, and you might like to, you know, get your drink on, you know, or certain activities and things that, you know, people are not expected to engage in. In the city, you can do that a lot more freely because nobody gives a fuck. People is too much going on, you know. So like a lot of gay people will go to like, you know, bigger cities and stuff. And it's not that, you know, there isn't homophobia in big cities. There definitely is. But like, you know, again, for me, you know, as a Chicago, it's like, look, I got 10,000 things to be worrying and thinking about today. Like, I literally don't have time to be thinking about what you're doing and who you fucking. So again, like, you know, it's not that people don't have bias and prejudices. They do. It's just that we really don't have the time and space, you know. So long as what you're doing ain't got nothing to do with me, for the most part, like, you know, people don't care. So people will go to larger urban environments to kind of like, you know, experience this freedom of difference. But, you know, again, as a, 1 second, Charles, as a result of, again, the breakdown, and again, the breakdown of community is overstated, but sometimes it can spill into loneliness, particularly, again, if you're coming to a place like New York, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, and you don't really know anybody. It can be very overwhelming and lonely very quickly, and especially like if you're an immigrant or something. So this work will be influential on the Chicago school, which we'll talk about in a moment. Charles, go ahead.
Yeah, like just agreeing with you, because like for me, I was talking, matter of fact, I was talking to Barry about this the other day. Me and Barry, we met up the other day and we were just discussing. I was basically telling him about like how one of my cousins, how you was basically saying like, up north, y'all really don't, like, I ain't gonna curse, but how y'all really don't care about like what other people do. But like in the South, water, and with us being Bible Belt states, and just like you said, everybody having a close knit community. If you're gay or you're poor, or oh, such and such dropped out of school, the whole community gonna know. Like my sister, she had a baby. My whole road, school, everybody knows. So like, yeah, that I definitely understand what you're saying from that type of point. It makes everything worse, bro, when everybody knows your business, bro. Everybody.
That's a great example. And again, the converse to it could be like, you know, some girls, if they have a baby in a place like, you know, LA, they may have to deal with that all by themselves, where maybe like, you know, in a smaller town, you know, the community, like, you know, they might judge her for a little bit, but they like may rally around her. You know, so it's pros and cons to any community, but you're right that, you know, the judgment of others definitely like can be more prevailing in a smaller community. And again, small, like it's not even just about North and South, because again, Atlanta's in the South, and like anything goes in Atlanta.
Facts.
You know, Facts. New Orleans totally booked well. Steven, did you have a question or a comment?
I have like a comment. Adding on to what Charles said, isn't that kind of like Allen, like, because we are such a small school that even like if you tell someone's like a secret and you know they can't keep their mouth shut, the word will spread around very, very fast.
Absolutely. That's a great parallel, actually. Very good. Like because again, we're talking about social, like towns versus cities, but it applies pretty much to any size groupings. That the smaller the grouping, yes, the more likely you're to have, you know, intimate, close personal relationships. And yeah, information is going to be spread and people are going to know more about, you know, like if, with me not being on campus, like, you know, this semester, for some of my colleagues, like, you know, call me like, hey, you okay? Everything all good? And like, you know, because it's easy to notice, as opposed to like, if I was at North Carolina State, and I was like, you know, going, like people would probably like barely blink because it's just so many people.
Right.
You know, so, but again, like I said, you know, the pros and cons of that, like it feels good, you know, even though it could be people like, you know, will blow up your business, stuff like that. The good aspect of it is that, you know, I'm in an environment where people noticed that I was going and cared enough, you know, to notice and stuff, as opposed to like a big environment, like, who's that dude that used to be teaching officers over there? Oh. Pros and cons of each. What you want to think about, the main thing you want to think about is how these things influence the individual. We're going to get bumped out in a moment. log back in because I want to get into the Chicago school today before we leave. It's very important. Use this link again. Log back in at exactly 11:40.
Alrighty.